setup. Bathroom. That's everything. Okay. This is the computer. Maria del Cesar had already lost everything, but she had her one son, Francisco de la Vega, and he loved to swim day and night. And one time she was trying to get him out of the water, and she told him, "Stay in the water or you'll become a fish." But he did, and little did she know, this is the last thing that she was ever going to say to him. This story focuses on family, unconditional love, and acceptance, which is why I think it's so important and impactful. Everybody has a family, and I would argue that everybody takes their family for granted. But this story really teaches why you shouldn't be doing that and the significance of family. So the story begins in 1674 in Spain. And this man, his name Francisco de la Vega, went swimming with some of his friends. He was last seen being pulled into the current, and they had presumed him dead. So they went home, told the family what had happened, and they didn't really think anything of it. But 5 years later, in 1679, a group of fishermen had seen this human-looking thing in the water. So they try to pull it up, but it fights and it breaks free. And so they're like, okay, how do we catch this? So they bring it in, lure it in with bread loaves. But they have no idea what to make of this thing. It looks like a human, but it was obviously in the water. So the description that they gave was he had red hair and fair skin, but he had scales on the front and on the back of his body, and he also had gills around his neck. And they had reported that he had looked like he had been in the water for a very long time. So his skin was probably very soft and very light. So they capture this man, and they're like, okay, it's a man. So they take it to an exorcist in Spain because they assume that he's being tormented by a demon. And he doesn't say anything except this one word, lierganes. And nobody knows what that means except this one man who recognized it as a place very close to his hometown in Spain. So they take him to lierganes, and he immediately starts walking towards his family home, the family home of Francisco de la Vega. How is this possible? This man doesn't even know who he is, or does he? Well, he starts walking straight to this place, and his mother recognizes him as Francisco, her long-lost son, who had passed away. So this story has such a huge impact on culture and society, and this impact is really seen specifically in lierganes, Spain. They built him a statue to commemorate this story and to commemorate this family because there has been so much truth and just love that this story has put on for decades. The biggest impact that I noticed was with the mother. She welcomes her son back with open arms. And I just think it's such a beautiful thing. She doesn't ask questions. She doesn't try to change him or anything. She just lets him be himself. Now, eventually, he goes back to the sea, but she allows him. One thing that I really learned from this and kind of understood was how loving families are, and just even Spanish families in general. I visited Spain when I was a child, and we had family there that I had never met. They were so welcoming, so kind, so just loving on someone that they had never met. And I wonder if this story has had an impact on Spanish culture or just any culture as a whole because of the way that families are so loving and so accepting. Which is why I wonder if Spanish families particularly are just so welcoming and so caring and so loving. Another thing that I really thought was interesting was the impact on modern culture that this story has had. So specifically, one thing I noticed was in Hollywood, there are a lot of fish-like, human-like creatures that exist. One of them is the creature of the Black Lagoon. He has very similar, human stature, but with fish scales and things like that. So I think the connection is clear. And then another connection that I thought was very similar is the crew from Pirates of the Caribbean on Davy Jones's ship. They are even more similar to the Fishman of lierganes than even the creature of the Black Lagoon. They are very human-like. The story tells that they were originally human, but they have all of these barnacles and gills and scales and things on them, and so I think the similarity is remarkable. But overall, I had three main takeaways from this story specifically, on just the impact and culture as a whole. The first one is storytelling. This story has lasted for hundreds of years and centuries, which you can't really say for a lot of things, which goes to show how important this story is. The other takeaway that I got from this was the importance of accepting others for their differences, because that was not very common in the past. Yet this story tells the mother of welcoming her son back with open arms, no questions asked, just pure love. And I think that's so uncommon at this time, and it really could have changed and shaped the culture. The other thing that I learned that was really interesting was the difference between fact and fiction. This story really blurs the lines. For anyone listening to it, Francisco de la Vega was probably a certain person or a specific person, yet he probably didn't turn into a fish. But the culture kind of leans into this myth because this one man named Benito Fiojo was actually known for disproving myths and things like this, but he actually said that the story was true, which gives it a whole nother background and legacy, I guess you could say. But later on, Gregorio Marañón, he had said that he didn't actually turn into a fish, but this man probably had a weird condition or something that had caused him to kind of look the way he did and act strange, and just kind of give some weird behaviors. So it really just shows the impact that this story has had. But overall, I think the biggest takeaway and impact on this story is really just learning about acceptance, love, family, understanding culture, understanding people as a whole, how human nature works. And I just think that it's a beautiful story that has had such an impact on family, on culture, and just teaches you how to love, which I think is one of the biggest and greatest values that anyone could carry. So, thank you so much for listening to my presentation about the Fishman of lierganes, and I hope that you give your family a little extra appreciation today and for the rest of your lives. Thank you.